Every wound tells a story.
My daughter owes me everything she has.
That was the first thing my father said when the judge asked him to take the stand. Not good morning, not this is a misunderstanding. Just that, oh, like I was some unpaid debt he'd been carrying his whole life. The courtroom smelled like wood polish and fear. I sat there behind my attorney, hands folded, pretending I didn't hear the whispers. Everyone knew who my father was, Edward Ellison, the businessman who used to have everything before the market swallowed him whole. And everyone knew who I was, Clara, the daughter he hadn't spoken to in nearly 7 years. Now he was suing me for control of my grandmother's estate. 3 retirement homes, a trust fund, and a bank account worth $3.4 million. He wanted all of it. Said I manipulated an old woman into changing her will. I could feel my pulse in my throat. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Calm, charming, convincing. The same tone he'd used to sell lies my whole childhood. Judge Raymond Cole adjusted his glasses. His voice was neutral, but his eyes weren't. He and my father went way back. College friends, golf buddies, pictures together at charity galas. Everyone in the room knew it, even if no one dared to say it out loud. My lawyer, Ms. Fisher, leaned toward me and whispered, "Keep your face blank. Don't let him see he's getting to you." I nodded, but it was useless. He always got to me. That was his gift. Dad continued, voice smooth as marble. "Clara was always a bright girl, but she's impressionable. After Margaret's health declined, Clara started making decisions for her. Large withdrawals, contract changes. It was alarming." He paused for effect, glancing at the jury. He was performing. He always was. Even here, even in front of the law, he was staging another scene in the never-ending play called Poor Edward, the Betrayed Father. My throat tightened. I could practically hear my grandmother's voice in my head, the one who'd raised me when he didn't bother. "Don't let him rewrite the story, darling. He's good at that." He was too good. When he looked at me across the courtroom, it wasn't with anger. It was with confidence, because he believed the system would protect him. Because the man in the black robe, the judge, used to toast champagne with him every New Year's Eve. And in that moment, I understood something I'd been trying to deny. This trial wasn't about money. It was about control. It always had been. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. The sound echoed, sharp and ugly. It almost made me smile. Finally, something in this room didn't sound rehearsed. "My father," I said, voice steady, "hasn't seen or spoken to me in 7 years. Not a text, not a call, not even a birthday card. But he suddenly remembers I exist the moment money enters the picture." Judge Cole frowned. "Ms. Ellison, please direct your statements to the court." I looked right at him. "I am." For a second, the room went still. Even my father blinked, the smallest crack in his perfect composure. I took a breath. My lawyer shot me a glance that said, "Careful." But careful never worked with him. Careful was how he won. When my grandmother got sick, he didn't visit. He didn't help. He told me it was a waste of time keeping her comfortable because, and I quote, "the old woman already lived long enough." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. He smiled, a polite, condensing curve of his mouth, and said, "That's not true." I tilted my head slightly. "Really? Should I read the text messages?" The smile vanished. Judge Cole cleared his throat. "Let's maintain order, please." But I wasn't done. Not yet. I turned toward my father, feeling every year of silence between us sharpen into something useful. I said, "Money was always the only thing that mattered. And now you're proving it." He opened his mouth to respond, but I didn't give him the chance. I looked back at the judge, his old friend, and said the line I had been holding in for months. You may be his friend, Your Honor, but today you're my judge, and I hope you still remember which side of the bench that puts you on." You could hear a pin drop. Even the stenographer paused, eyes wide. The color drained from the judge's face, just a little, like someone had pulled the curtain off the truth. And for the first time in my life, my father didn't have anything to say.
People always assume if your father's rich, your life must have been easy. They see the house, the car, the name, and think privilege equals love. It doesn't. It never did. When I was 10, I learned that lesson the hard way. My father, Edward Ellison, ran a construction company back then. He was charming, ambitious, the kind of man who could talk a room into following him off a cliff. He wasn't cruel in the obvious ways. He didn't yell or hit. He just didn't care. And that kind of neglect is quieter, but it cuts deeper. My mother died when I was 8. Stroke. Sudden. I barely remember her voice, just her perfume and the way her hands were always warm. After the funeral, Dad sat me down and said, "You'll stay with Grandma for a while until I figure things out." That while lasted 15 years. Grandma Margaret was the opposite of him. Calm, grounded, soft-spoken, but sharp as glass when she needed to be. She'd say, "Some people mistake coldness for strength. Don't be fooled by that." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Now I do. She was talking about him. He'd visit occasionally, holidays, birthdays, wearing expensive suits and cheap gilt. He'd hand me a gift card, pat my shoulder, and say, "Make sure you listen to your grandma." That was his version of parenting. When I was 16, I asked him why he never stayed long. He said, "You're too much like your mother, always emotional, always exhausting." I remember standing there, holding my report card with straight A's, thinking, even my achievements tire him out. So I stopped trying, stopped asking, stopped expecting, stopped hoping. And Grandma filled in every gap he left. She was my entire world, my mother, my mentor, my home. When his business started failing in my 20s, he didn't call me, he called Grandma. He asked for money, for connections, for advice. She helped. Of course she did. She believed in family, even when family didn't believe in her. But when she found out he'd been lying about how bad things were, that he'd used her name to secure a loan, she froze him out. That was the first time I ever saw her angry. She told me, "Clara, never let anyone use your love against you, not even blood." After that fallout, my father stopped coming around completely. Years went by, birthdays, holidays, graduations, silence. She never spoke ill of him, but the absence in her eyes whenever his name came up said enough. When I graduated college, I sent him an invitation anyway. He never replied. He didn't call when I got my first job either. But when the newspaper ran a small feature about me, local woman joins a rehabilitation startup to help injured seniors regain mobility, he texted, "Good for you. Don't forget where you come from." It was the first thing he'd said to me in nearly 6 years. I remember staring at that message, wondering what he meant. I know now, he meant, "Don't forget who owns you." After Grandma got sick, everything changed. Her health declined fast, early dementia. Some days she called me by Mom's name, other days she just held my hand and said, "You're my best decision." I moved back into her house to care for her, balancing my clinic shifts and sleepless nights. My father didn't visit once. He sent flowers, the kind his assistant probably ordered, and left a voicemail. "She wouldn't want you quitting your job for this. Think about your future." But this was my future, taking care of the only person who ever took care of me. When she passed, I found a letter in her nightstand. It wasn't long, just a few handwritten lines, her careful script fading in spots where the pen hesitated. "Clara, I leave everything to you because you stayed. You never owed me anything, and that's why you deserve it all." I cried until morning, not because of the money, but because she understood something no one else ever did. I never wanted more. I just wanted to be seen. The day after the funeral, my father called. His voice was oddly cheerful. He said, "I heard about the will. We should talk." I said, "About what?" He said, "About what's fair." And just like that, years of distance disappeared, replaced by the same old manipulation, just in a sharper suit. He wasn't grieving. He was planning. That was the moment I knew the next chapter of my life wouldn't be about healing. It would be about surviving him again.
The first letter came 2 weeks after the funeral. Crisp, white envelope, heavy paper, bold, black ink. Ellison versus Ellison. Plaintiff, Edward J. Ellison. Defendant, Clara M. Ellison. It was almost funny, seeing our names stacked like that. Father versus daughter. Like family was just another corporate division he wanted to acquire. Inside, his attorney claimed I'd influenced Grandma while she was mentally compromised, that I'd taken advantage of her fragile state to redirect assets meant for the family business. Except there was no family business left. He'd driven it into the ground years ago. I sat at my kitchen table, reading every line until my eyes burned. The words didn't sound like legal jargon. They sounded like betrayal translated into formal English. My lawyer, Amanda Fisher, called me the next morning. She said, "I've seen a lot of ugly estate fights, but this one's personal. He's not after money. He's after control." I laughed, bitter. "Story of my life." She sighed. "He's trying to paint you as manipulative. The dementia diagnosis gives him leverage, but the will is airtight. We can win, if the judge plays it straight." That's when she told me who the judge would be. Raymond Cole. My father's golf buddy. The same man who toasted my graduation with champagne at our old house when I was 8. I hadn't seen him since. I could still remember his voice, though, the one that said, "You've got your father's eyes, kiddo." Like that was supposed to be a compliment. I hung up and just sat there staring at the wall. The air felt heavy, like even the house understood what I was up against. The next morning, Dad called. No hello, just, "This can end peacefully if you do the right thing." I asked, "What does that mean?" He paused, that long theatrical silence he used when he wanted control of the room. "For you, Clara. You don't want the world thinking you scammed your own grandmother." He said it like a threat, disguised as advice. I hung up. That night, I went through Grandma's files again. Her will, her letters, her medical records, everything. I noticed a detail I'd missed before. Months before she died, she'd written a note to her attorney asking that I be protected from interference or coercion by Edward Ellison. Even from her hospital bed, she saw this coming. She knew him better than anyone, and she still believed in me enough to prepare for this fight. Amanda filed our response the next day. Calm, professional, no drama. But my father wasn't after a clean case. He wanted noise. He wanted humiliation. Within a week, rumors started spreading through the local business community. Old acquaintances called me the girl who stole from her dying grandmother. He'd leaked selective details to make me look like a parasite. That was his real game. Controlled the story, controlled the sympathy. Amanda warned me, "He's pulling every string. Don't engage publicly. Let the evidence talk." But silence never protected me from him. It only made his voice louder. I still remember one afternoon standing in line at the grocery store, overhearing two women whisper behind me, "She's the one being sued by her own father. Can you imagine? What kind of daughter does that?" I left my cart there and walked out. Sat in my car, hands gripping the wheel, trying not to cry. It's one thing to be hated by a parent. It's another to be hated by strangers who only know his version of you. When the first hearing date arrived, I walked into that courthouse feeling smaller than I had in years. Dad was already there, press suit, rehearsed smile, shaking hands like a celebrity making a cameo. When his eyes met mine, he grinned just enough to whisper, "You don't belong here." He was wrong. This time, I did belong here. Not as his daughter, but as someone finally ready to stop playing his game. Amanda leaned close and said, "Remember, he's not the man you wanted him to be. He's the man he keeps proving he is." That line stuck with me. During the pretrial, he sat across the table, pretending this was business, pure logic, no emotion. He said, "You could have avoided all this if you'd just let me handle things." I asked, "Handle or take?" He smiled. "Semantics." It took everything in me to not scream. He was stealing my grandmother's legacy with the same calmness he used to order coffee. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Grandma's voice, not a memory, more like an echo of how she used to say my name when she was proud. Clara. Some people confuse love with ownership. Don't be one of them. So I decided I wouldn't be. I called Amanda at midnight and said, "We're not settling. No deals, no compromises." She hesitated. "You sure? He'll fight dirty." "I know. But this time, he's not the only one with something to lose." The first few weeks of the trial felt like drowning slowly while everyone politely watched. Judge Cole pretended to be neutral, but the bias was obvious. He let my father's lawyer ramble for hours, cutting Amanda off whenever she pressed too close. Every objection we made turned into a lecture about decorum. Every lie from my father's side was noted for context. It wasn't a trial, it was theater. And my father, he thrived in it. He played the role of the misunderstood patriarch perfectly. Weary sighs, trembling voice, rehearsed lines like, "I only wanted to protect my family from poor decisions." The jury nodded, some even sympathetic. Meanwhile, I was framed as the cold, greedy daughter who exploited a dying woman for profit. The irony was almost poetic. He was accusing me of being exactly like him. Amanda tried to keep me calm. "We're building a record," she whispered. "Appeal if we must. Don't give them drama." But it was hard not to react when my father looked at me with that same expression he wore my entire childhood. That smug certainty that no matter what I did, he'd still win. Halfway through the second hearing, I caught Judge Cole's tone changing. Small favors, friendly nods toward my father, even casual comments like, "Edward, could you clarify that detail for me?" Edward, not Mr. Ellison, not the plaintiff, just Edward. Amanda and I exchanged a look. Something was off. That night, she called me from her office. "I checked public records," she said. "Cole and your father co-signed a land development permit 8 years ago. It didn't pass, but the connection's real." My stomach turned. So they worked together? Looks that way. Not officially, but enough to raise eyebrows. I leaned against my kitchen counter, staring at the wall. "Can we use that?" "Not yet," she said. "We need proof it's current. If we accuse a sitting judge without evidence, it backfires." The next morning, I drove to my grandmother's old house, now locked up, dust covering everything like memory sediment. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe closure, maybe a sign. In her desk drawer, beneath a stack of unpaid bills and postcards, I found a photo. It was a charity event from years ago. My father, smiling next to Judge Cole, champagne glasses in hand. On the back, Grandma had written in her neat cursive, "Keep your eyes open, darling. Not all friends stay honest." She knew. Somehow she'd known. The next hearing felt different. I couldn't unsee that photograph. My father and Judge Cole shoulder to shoulder, two men who'd built their careers on power and perception. Now, one was pretending to judge the other. Amanda noticed my focus and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded. Better than I've ever been. Dad took the stand again, reciting the same polished script about misplaced family trust. He even produced a witness, a former nurse from my grandmother's facility, clearly prepped. She often seemed confused, the nurse said carefully. Sometimes she didn't remember signing things. I felt heat rise in my chest, but Amanda squeezed my arm under the table. "Not yet," she mouthed. When cross-examination came, Amanda's tone was calm but sharp. "You were employed at the Rose Hill home, correct?" "Yes." "And during Mrs. Ellison's final months, who paid your wages?" The nurse hesitated. "The family." "Which family member specifically?" "Mr. Ellison?" A few jurors exchanged glances. Amanda pressed harder. "So you were under direct payment from the plaintiff during the months you claim to have witnessed confusion." The nurse blinked. I suppose so." Amanda smiled faintly. No further questions. My father's jaw tightened, a microsecond of panic flashing through his eyes. He wasn't used to losing control of the script. During recess, he approached me near the hallway, voice low and venomous. "You think one cheap trick will change anything? He's not going to side with you." I met his stare, steady. "We'll see." When we returned to court, Amanda stood to introduce new evidence. The charity photo. "Your Honor, this image was found in Mrs. Ellison's personal effects. It documents an undisclosed financial relationship between the plaintiff and this court." Cole's gavel hit the bench hard. "Miss Fisher, that's an outrageous accusation." "Then you won't mind if we verify it," she said evenly. "For transparency." The room went silent. My father's face drained of color. The judge adjusted his glasses, suddenly sweating. "Recess," he snapped, voice cracking. As we stood, my father turned toward me, whispering so quietly only I could hear, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I leaned closer and whispered back, "No, Dad, I just made yours." That night, Amanda called me again. "They postponed proceedings. That means Cole is scrambling. You hit a nerve." I sat there in the dark, the city humming outside my window, realizing for the first time, he wasn't untouchable anymore. All my life, I'd been afraid of his power. Now I understood it was just noise. Loud, but hollow.
The postponement gave us 3 weeks. Just enough time to dig, not enough to breathe. Amanda and I worked late every night, surrounded by coffee cups and files spread across my living room floor. She joked once, "This place looks like an FBI bunker," and I laughed, but it felt true. The deeper we went, the uglier it got. We found old city records showing my father's company and Cole's firm had partnered on multiple development deals a decade ago. Some approved, some quietly dropped, but the pattern was there. Shared investments, shared losses, shared loyalty. It was everything we needed to prove bias, if we could link it to now. One night, around 2:00 a.m., Amanda looked up from her laptop. "Got something," she said. She turned the screen toward me. An archived property record from 2 years ago. Cole's name listed as co-signer for a loan renewal on my father's property. Not ancient history, recent, active. That was it, the thread that tied them together. I felt my chest tighten, a strange mix of relief and rage. "So he's been judging his own business partner?" Amanda nodded. "That's grounds for removal, and maybe more." The next day, she filed a motion to recuse Judge Cole due to conflict of interest. It was bold, risky. If we failed, we'd look desperate, but if it worked... My father called that night. His voice was flat, colder than usual. "You really think you can humiliate me in court? You'll regret this, Clara." I said nothing. He waited, then added, "You're still my daughter." I finally replied, "That used to mean something." Click. Call ended. I didn't cry. I didn't shake.
I just sat there, realizing I wasn't scared of him anymore. Not his voice, not his threats, not the version of me he kept trying to resurrect, the obedient girl who said yes to everything. The hearing for the motion was short, almost anticlimactic. Cole looked exhausted, his tone clipped. I'll review the filing and render a decision by end of week. He didn't look at me once. And that was the moment I knew we'd already won something bigger than a verdict. We'd forced him to see himself. 2 days later, the ruling came in quietly, a single email notification from the clerk's office. Judge Raymond Cole is hereby recused from the case Ellison versus Ellison due to conflict of interest. I read it 3 times before it sank in. For once, the system had listened. For once, someone with power had to step aside. Amanda called seconds later. "We did it," she said, voice breathless. "They're assigning a new judge next week." I didn't cheer or scream. I just exhaled, long and shaky, like I'd been holding my breath for years. The next morning, I walked into that same courthouse lobby I dreaded for months, but everything felt different. Same walls, same marble floor, but I wasn't the one shrinking anymore. My father was waiting near the elevators, flanked by his lawyer. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just diminished. He said, "You think this changes anything?" I said, "No. Everything changes now." He laughed under his breath, but it didn't land the way it used to. The charm was gone, the performance cracked. I realized then, all his power had always depended on people believing in it. The second we stopped believing, it disappeared. Back home, I sat on the balcony with Milo, the city buzzing beneath us. Amanda had warned me not to get too comfortable. She said, "He'll try something new." But I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about Grandma. How she'd written that note years ago. Protect her from interference or coercion. She'd predicted this moment down to the bone. I whispered to the air, "We're okay now, Grandma. I promise." The final trial date was set for mid-April. A new judge, new jury, clean slate. But deep down, I knew this wouldn't just be another day in court. This would be the day I stopped being afraid of sharing his name. And if he wanted a war, fine, I'd show up. Calm, steady, prepared. Not to destroy him, just to remind him I existed on my own terms. Because when you've been silenced long enough, telling the truth isn't revenge, it's release.
The courtroom felt colder that morning. Or maybe I was just finally awake enough to feel everything. New judge, new jury, same men across the aisle. My father sat tall in his navy suit, the one he wore to every public humiliation he disguised as business. When his eyes met mine, there was something new in them. Not confidence, not even anger. It was fear, quiet, contained, the kind that hides behind arrogance. Judge Marlene Graves presided now. Older, sharp, the kind of woman who looked like she'd seen every trick in the book and written a few herself. She began briskly. "We're here to finalize the matter of Ellison v. Ellison." Amanda whispered, "Stay steady. Let the truth do the work." Dad's lawyer started with the same tired script. "My client only seeks fairness, Your Honor. His daughter manipulated an elderly woman." Judge Graves raised a hand. "Counselor, unless you have new evidence, don't waste the court's time." He faltered. "We'd like to reintroduce testimony from the nurse." Graves cut in again, calm but razor-edged. "The one proven to be on your client's payroll? Denied." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. For the first time, my father's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. Then it was our turn. Amanda called me to the stand. Walking up there, I could feel my hands trembling, not from fear, but from everything I'd been holding back for years. I sat down, swore in, and looked straight ahead. "Miss Ellison," Amanda began softly, "can you tell the court what your relationship with your grandmother was like in her final years?" I swallowed hard. "She was my family, my constant, the only person who ever showed up." "Did your father contribute to her care?" "No," I said. "He didn't visit."
Not once. He sent flowers through an assistant. Amanda nodded, then turned to the jury. And yet, he now claims you manipulated her into leaving you, the estate? Yes. Why do you think he's doing this? I took a breath. Because losing control scares him more than losing money. A few heads in the jury nodded. Even Judge Graves's expression softened for half a second. Amanda gestured toward the exhibits. Let's address Exhibit 14, the letter written by Margaret Ellison. She handed it to the clerk, who read it aloud. I leave everything to Clara because she stayed. She never owed me anything, and that's why she deserves it all. The words filled the room like air returning to lungs that had been emptied too long. Dad's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled him. I could see Dad's jaw clench, a vein twitching near his temple. For once, I saw him human, flawed, cornered, small. And that was before the real blow landed. Amanda gave a small nod, the signal. I opened the folder in front of me and took out a set of documents. My fingers didn't shake this time. Your Honor, I said clearly. Before my grandmother passed, she made a request to her lawyer. She wanted full transparency on anyone connected to this estate. Judge Graves looked intrigued. Go on. These, I said, placing the papers on the evidence table, are property filings and loan renewals linking my father to former presiding judge Raymond Cole. They've shared financial interests for years. The courtroom went dead silent. You could almost hear people breathe differently. Amanda stepped in smoothly, voice calm but cutting. Your Honor, these documents demonstrate that the original proceedings were compromised. The plaintiff and Judge Cole had ongoing financial ties. My client was denied a fair hearing. Graves skimmed the papers, expression tightening. When she looked up, her face had drained of color, pale, stunned, furious all at once. Mr. Ellison, she said slowly, is this accurate? My father's lips parted, but no sound came out. For the first time in my life, I saw him speechless. He looked around, at the jury, at me, at the cameras, like he was searching for someone to rescue him from his own reflection. Amanda pressed one final question. Miss Ellison, is there anything else you'd like to tell the court? I turned to the judge, then to the man who'd built his empire on my silence. My father used to tell me the truth is just a version of the story with better timing. I let that hang there. Today, the timing's mine. Gasps, murmurs. Someone in the back actually whispered, damn. Judge Graves cleared her throat, adjusting her glasses. The court finds that the will stands as written. All assets remain with the defendant. Furthermore, due to clear evidence of attempted judicial misconduct, this case will be referred for investigation. Her gavel struck once. Sharp. Final. It sounded like a door closing on years of control, fear, and guilt. I didn't look at him right away. When I finally did, he wasn't angry. He just looked hollow. Like a man realizing the performance was over and the audience had stopped clapping. As we left the courtroom, Amanda squeezed my shoulder. You did it. I shook my head. No, she did. And I meant Grandma. Outside, the air was cold but clean, the kind that burns your lungs a little before you remember how to breathe. I looked up at the courthouse windows catching sunlight and thought, justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers enough to be heard.
The week after the trial felt unreal. The newspapers ran headlines like, Judge resigns amid conflict scandal, and businessman accused of manipulating daughter's inheritance. I didn't read the full articles. I didn't need to. The world had finally caught up to the truth I'd been living with my whole life. My father didn't call. He didn't apologize. He simply disappeared into silence, the same silence he used to punish me as a kid. Except this time, it didn't hurt. It just sounded like peace. Amanda told me he'd lost several contracts, that investors were backing out. When she said, "He'll probably never work in this city again," I nodded slowly. Not because I wanted revenge, but because justice, for once, had stayed upright on its own legs. A few weeks later, I drove back to my grandmother's house. It was still, dust dancing in sunlight through half-open blinds. I walked into her garden, the one she used to tend every morning, with her old gloves and humming tunes from the 1940s. I knelt, pressed my hand into the soil, and whispered, "It's done." The wind shifted. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was her. But for the first time, I felt light. Not happy, just free. Life went on. I returned to work at the rehab center, helped people walk again, rebuild strength, reclaim small pieces of dignity. Every time I saw someone stand for the first time, shaky but determined, I thought of her, and of me. Because standing up, no matter how late, is still standing up. One afternoon, Amanda stopped by my office. She smiled and said, "You know, this case, people will study it. You changed something bigger than you realize." I told her, "Maybe, but all I wanted was to stop being afraid of my own name." That night, I sat on my balcony, the city glowing beneath me. Milo slept by my feet, breathing softly. I thought about everything I'd lost, and everything I'd kept. Then I said it out loud, to no one in particular. I didn't win against my father. I just stopped losing to him. And maybe that's what justice really is. Not revenge, not triumph, just finally choosing peace over permission. Because family doesn't mean ownership. Blood doesn't make you honest. And love, the real kind, never asks you to prove your worth.